First I want to talk about here is discipline. And I think the image is very fitting to go with discipline, because when you look at that image, you see people who are going to be focused. They're going to kind of follow their code, the things that they have to engage, whether they're easy or hard. These are Navy SEALs and they're elite warriors, and you don't get to be anything professional or elite without a certain level of discipline. The reason why you're going to need some sort of level of discipline and a minimum level of discipline is because you are going to, first off, have to create new habits. And as I've talked about how the brain works in terms of building new habits and wiring new habits into your brain, you're going to be competing with older neural networks that are already well established. And so as you're trying to wire new habits, the way the brain works is it's going to choose the path that it's most dominantly wired to do. And so you're going to be fighting against a lot of those dominant neural networks that are not helpful for trading. So when you're trying to make a trading decision, you're going to have to fight against some of that, and some of the decisions you have to make will go against kind of your already pre-existing wiring or how your brain is wired. And to do that, you're going to, every single time you make that decision, you're going to have to maintain a certain level of discipline and commitment. And that will be absolutely necessary. You're going to create any sort of new habit, you have to continually do that new habit, execute that new habit, fire that new habit, and repeat it over and over again until it becomes habit. The good thing about discipline is that it's the kind of thing, especially in trading, it's the kind of thing that becomes easier the more you do it. And eventually that kind of resistance you come up against, whether it's biological or neurological or psychological, that resistance gets smaller and smaller over time. That's really kind of the first stage, is kind of coming up against that resistance and slowly making that thing you're coming up against smaller and smaller and easier over time. Eventually, kind of like someone who works out at the gym, in the beginning when you start working on the gym, it's painful, it's not fun, it's going to require you to be committed to it. But eventually you start to feel really good the more you go to the gym. You start to feel healthier. You start to have more endorphins and more positive chemistry in your body and in your brain that actually supports more positive and successful functioning in the rest of your life. And eventually, that thing that was hard in the beginning now becomes something that you actually crave because it makes you feel better. So in the beginning, you're going to need discipline to kind of get through that first phase, that kind of neural adaptation phase, so that you can kind of fight these old networks, these old habits that are holding you back. They're limiting you from becoming a successful trader, becoming more financially successful than you are now, more abundant than you are now, more confident than you are now. And so think of it kind of as like, hey, it's a little bit of a trial in the beginning, but the rewards you get out of it are exponentially better than what you put into it. So discipline, think of this as an important mindset skill you want to build. It's a power, and it eventually becomes an armor to protect you against sliding back, becoming lazy, becoming less confident. It's a very potent thing that you will want to build. You do this, and this eventually leads to resilience. So when you have the experience of kind of coming up against some sort of internal resistance, I don't want to go to the gym, it's hard, and weather's bad out right now and it's raining, or I don't want to go skiing today, it's not perfect weather conditions. And when you start to come up against these things, but then you go anyways, it builds a secondary trait, kind of this consequence of it. And that's this resilience. It creates this experience that you can go up against resistance and win. You can go up against any sort of laziness or inertia or lack of momentum and come out ahead, come out successful, come out victorious. You do that enough times and it eventually creates this habit and mindset of resilience that, hey, things aren't always going to be perfect. I start going to the gym. If I go to the gym 5 days a week for the next 7 weeks in a row, that doesn't mean I'm going to have this linear progression in my body and my physique and my muscles. I'm going to have some setbacks in that. I'm going to have some moments where I don't gain anything. but I built this resilience to kind of, those resistances that I come up against eventually become weaker and weaker. Eventually, I'm able to handle greater and greater levels of stress and things pushing back against me, and I do it, and then I eventually climb up that mountain. So it builds an inner resilience that not only benefits you in trading, but your life as well. This is a super important mindset skill to acquire in your life. These two skills also end up building another skill, which is emotional IQ. And emotional IQ is necessary for trading. You are going to experience emotions, partially because of how trading challenges you psychologically, partially how it challenges you biologically, partially of how it challenges you neurologically. And as you experience these emotions, if you have the discipline, you have the resilience, what you're going to find is that a lot of these emotions that you experience aren't as accurate in really describing the situation you're facing. How many times have you experienced anger or jealousy or fear only to realize later, wow, that wasn't actually an accurate way to represent the situation. That which I thought I was afraid of, I wasn't. That which I was kind of jealous for, there was no need for that. That which I was really angry for really wasn't what I thought it was. You're going to discover that a fair amount of the emotions that you experience, not just in trading in your life, aren't as accurate representations of reality as we think they are. They're not, and that as we kind of progress through that process, we build this emotional IQ in our trading in our life that really kind of empowers us to not be subservient to emotions, not be rocked by every single emotion we experience, which is, if you get rocked by every single emotion you experience, you are the flag, not the flagpole. Person who has emotional IQ is the flagpole. They don't waver in the wind. That's what the flag does. You stand steady, you stand tall, you stand strong, and you stay rooted. And nothing takes you out of that, whether it's a small or big wind. It doesn't take you out of that. That's emotional IQ. Patience. All of these lead to a sense of patience, and you're going to need a sense of patience. If you've ever met a woman or a man that you really liked, but you're kind of in the beginning stage of getting to know them and going on dates and things like that, you realize you need patience for that process. You need patience because sometimes things aren't going to move at the pace you want them to. We are biologically and neurologically wired to seek out short-term rewards over long-term benefits. We would rather have the quick reward versus the long reward. Even if we know that if we were given the option between making $100 right now or making, say, $200, but it taking a little bit longer, 9 times out of 10, we're going to choose that immediate short-term reward. And patience is something that will be very important because you're going to come up against certain experiences where the short-term reward will be really easy to take, but it might actually create a long-term problem. And if any of you have ever started a business or started going to the gym or tried learning an instrument, a new language, you can't really go for those short rewards. You can't go for the short-term success because if you do, you find out you end up building these kind of bad habits that don't give you the real long-term success that you want. Anybody can make money in the short term. Anybody can have success in the short term. But the people who are able to be successful year after year after year, those are the people we're kind of impressed with the most. Anybody could have one really good year in sports, but to be able to be a champion or always in that championship conversation year after year after year, that takes patience. And that takes a particular mindset of focusing on not just now, but also what am I doing now and how is it affecting the future? This is super important in trading because you're going to come up against this a lot. So this is a key mindset skill you're going to want to build. This is a big one. Probability versus fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is the one who kind of sees things in black and white. If I win, it's good, and if I lose, it's bad. And that mindset will put you on this roller coaster and trap that you won't be able to get out of when it comes to trading. As I said before, you have to think of trading as you have to have the mindset, a probabilistic mindset. That means that, just like in poker, and I play poker, I may get pocket aces pre-flop, and a large portion of the time I'm going to win that hand, but it doesn't always work out like that. Sometimes the flop comes out and it's horrible for your aces. And you have to understand that, hey, just because I have pocket aces right now doesn't mean that I'm going to win every single hand. If I have this fixed mindset on pocket aces, I'm going to win, you're going to run into probabilities that are going to work against you sometimes. And that will affect your mindset. That will throw you off drastically. You as a trader have to think like a poker player. You have to think in terms of probabilities. And that's not just in terms of the good hands or the good trades that you have right now, but understanding that, yes, I may lose this trade or the next trade, the next 5 trades or 10 trades, but if my edge is solid and my baseline is in place, then I'm going to let the probabilities play out. Variance happens. I could flip a coin 100 times, and that doesn't mean every other time it's going to be heads or tails, and that doesn't mean every 100 times I flip it, it's going to be 50-50. We have to understand variance happens, but that probabilities dominate over time. That's why casinos make the money that they do, because they're not worried about losing the next 1,000 or 10,000 hands in blackjack. They know that over time that probability is going to work in their favor. You have to have that mindset, and that means all the other mindset skills we talk about, discipline, we talked about patience, we talked about emotional IQ, we talked about resilience. All of these will allow you to have that probability mindset and really maintain that. If you don't, and you have this fixed mindset, you are putting yourself on a roller coaster that you cannot get off, and it's a trap. It's a psychological trap that will imprison you. So it's super important that you learn to start trading and thinking in probabilities. Along those lines, I've talked about, thinking short term, and really kind of you have to let go of that and think long term. And we talked about probabilities. If you were to look at this and this was your equity curve, you might think, man, this is really bad. I had 100,000. I was at one point, I was at 102,000. And now I'm down, I went down to 91,000. I'm hovering around 92,000. And, these are like 40, 45 trades. This is bad. I've been doing really bad these last 4 trades. I can't really get a winner. I get one winner and then I just get a bunch of losers and I can't ever get back up. If you're thinking short term like this, you are going to suffer a lot. You have to kind of think in this overall probability mindset, because while it may look like this is really bad, guess what? This experience here is just this little pullback here. And if you get swept up in this and thinking everything's bad, and you start changing strategies and you start changing instruments and start changing your trading plan, you're going to miss out on all this profit and opportunity. That's why it's super important to not get so focused or overly focused on the short term and think it means something really drastic. These things happen, even to the best of the best. And so it's super important that you don't get swept up in this and you kind of maintain that probability mindset.